Hey everybody, Niall Doherty here from jQuery Tutorials for Beginners.com. Welcome to Lesson 5, where we're going to be talking about adding and removing classes via jQuery. Now, before we get into it, I just want to let you know that I'm keeping it intentionally very simple and stepping through things very slowly in these tutorials. So if you know some of the stuff we're going over, just skip ahead. Feel free to skip ahead. Below each video, whether you're watching YouTube or jQuery Tutorials for Beginners.com, you can find video highlights, and that'll give you the different times where I talk about different things, so you can skip ahead. Okay? Right, adding and removing classes in jQuery. Let's get started on that. I've gone ahead and set up this page ahead of time because there's quite a bit we want to get through here. All we've got is a link that says do something funky. That's going to do funky stuff for us later. Then we've got two paragraphs with lorem ipsum, just filler text. If you're not sure what lorem ipsum is, it's just text you can throw in there just to see, just to fill up space. So you have stuff to play around with, content to play around with. This is the website I use to grab lorem ipsum. I'll have that linked up in the notes to go along with this screencast. Okay, back to the page. This is running off my local hard drive. I want to show you the directory structure that I have for it. Same as in previous screencasts. I have a demo folder stored on my desktop. In there I have my index.html file. Then I have three folders: JavaScript, style sheets, images, and the only one of those folders at the moment that has something in it is JavaScript. So we have the jQuery core file, which is called into our .html page. I'll show you that in a moment. We have our custom.js file, which we won't use in this tutorial. It has been used in a previous tutorial, and we'll probably use it again in the future. So that's the directory structure. That's how we're set up. Let's look at our source code for index.html. Here it is right here. Okay, we'll start at the bottom. You'll see we have our two paragraphs of lorem ipsum and a paragraph just with the link in it for do something funky. Our link doesn't go anywhere. It just has a hash or a pound sign there. If we scroll further up, you will see that I have prepared our jQuery code. Actually, start a little further up, we have our jQuery core called in, so we have access to all the jQuery goodness. And then below that, we have our jQuery code that we're writing. So we start off with document.ready as usual to get everything ready, I guess. And then we have our click function. So we're basically saying at the moment that when any anchor, any link on the page is clicked, such as this one here, so that's the only one we have on the page, we want the following event to take place. And we're going to write our code here in a moment. For now, all we have in there is we're saying prevent default. So we want to prevent the default action when the link is clicked, which would be just to load up this hash or this pound, as you say in America. So pretty simple. Went through this prevent default thing in a previous screencast, so check back if you missed that. Right, let's get into it. Let's start writing some code. First thing we want to do is write some CSS, internal CSS. I explained before that everything ideally should be external, but we're going to keep it all internal in this screencast because it's just easier to follow for demonstration purposes. Ooh, one other thing. We would normally, if we were keeping it external, we would have a .css file called before our .js file. If you're wondering why that is, it's because A, Google says so. I'll have this linked up in the show notes. And B, it's because it's faster. Okay, causes less problems. So if you're ever using external coding, oops, let me go back here. If you're ever using external coding, always make sure your .css files load into the page before your .js files. Okay, now let's get to coding. We want to create a class. So, text/CSS. We're going to create a class right in here, just kind of a generic highlight class for paragraphs. So we're writing our CSS for it now. Let's go with, we just want to change the background, okay, just something obvious that we can see it working. We will make up a color. That sounds good. Okay, so we have a highlight class. We want to see what that looks like without any jQuery. Eventually we'll have jQuery add that class to one of our paragraphs, but right now we're just going to add it the old-fashioned way to confirm that it works. So save that page, flip back over to the browser, refresh that. Hey, it's yellow. Perfect. So our paragraph is highlighted in yellow. Now let's go back. We want to make that happen dynamically with jQuery when we click on our link. So how do we do that? Okay, we're going to build it up nice and slow. We want to target a paragraph. Okay, now this is basically saying any paragraph on the page. So any P on the page, such as this P down here, or any of the other paragraph tags after it. In fact, all of them at the same time is what we're essentially targeting. We're going to tell jQuery to add class. Okay, we're using the add class function in jQuery. What class do we want to add? That's what goes in here. We want to add our highlight class. Okay, save that, flip back over to our browser, refresh the page, click this, everything is highlighted. Great. But what we want to do is what we had a moment ago. We just want to highlight this middle paragraph. Okay, that's what we're going to aim for in this tutorial. So we could use a pseudo class maybe. Maybe because it's our first paragraph, we can say p first add class. Save the page, flip back over, see what that does. Yes, see, we forgot about, well, I say we. I forgot that this is actually a paragraph up here too. Okay, that's actually our first paragraph. If we go back to our source code, that's our first P on the page. Bummer. Okay, what if we use second? Will that work? Refresh. No, it won't work because there's no such thing as a second pseudo class. All we have is first and last. Okay, so if we save last, whoops, I resized the text by accident, but hey, we'll go with it. So last highlights the last one. Okay. Okay, so to get the second, here's what we need to do. We need to use this little construction here, EQ. Okay, and we can say the number of the paragraph, but the numbers start at 0. So 0 is the first paragraph on the page, which is what we had with first. So 1 should get us what we're aiming for. Perfect. Okay, let's see, what else can we do here? Let's add multiple classes. Let's get fancy. Let's add in another class. We'll write it down here first. What if we wanted to bold our paragraph? Now we could write this, of course, all within the highlight declaration, but we want to use an example of multiple classes. So we will say font weight, and we're going to use the number here, 800, instead of the word bold, because I prefer the more specific numbering. And then we'll skip back up here, say add class, highlight, space, bold, which basically means add these two classes. Okay, save that, flip back over, refresh. Aha, now our paragraph is not only highlighted in yellow, but it's also bolded. That's great. Now, one thing about jQuery is that there's about 17 different ways all the time to do the very same thing. So I'm going to show you an alternative way to do just this here. Not a way that I personally recommend, but just to give you an idea of the flexibility of jQuery and how there's just more than one way to solve a problem usually. Okay, so jQuery itself can add CSS directly in line to whatever we want it to. And it does that via this little CSS function, declaration, whatever you call it. I was never very good with the terminology of this stuff. But we need to be careful with how we write it because we have parentheses and brackets, and then we got to put in, well, we're going to try and go for the same effect. So background, let's say, what was it? 4 F's and 2 9's. Okay, that's cool. We also want to change the font weight. Now, here's a little thing to be careful of. It's not the exact same way we write it in CSS. Because in CSS, you'll notice down here we have font dash weight, okay? But in jQuery, we have to write it with camel case, not with a dash. So be careful there. Sometimes the declarations will be spelt a little bit differently or have different casing or no dashes, whatever. So just be careful with that. Let's see if that does the trick for us. So now we're just telling when we click on the link, we want the page to add this CSS inline. If you had Firebug or Chrome's, I think they have a web developer type thingy as well, so you can see what's happening in the background with the page. You would see this code being added inline, but we're not going to do that because it's a little too advanced. But let's just see the end result. Refresh the page, click that, exact same. Okay. Now, as I said, not the ideal way to do it. I think it's better to keep your CSS and your jQuery separate. So having your CSS stuck into jQuery here, it's just not as easy to change it as it would be if you just used add class. Okay, now let's back up a little bit. Okay, we had add class. What if we wanted to do remove class? What if we wanted to start off down here with a class already highlighted? Okay, so our paragraph already has the highlight class, but what we want to happen when we click that link is for that class to be removed. Well, pretty simple. We're just going to change it to remove class. We'll also just take out, just to simplify it, we'll take out bold here and we'll delete bold here. We'll just play with our highlight class. Okay, so page saved, refresh. We start off with our class highlighted, with our paragraph highlighted. We'll click this and away it goes. Simple as that. So we can use remove class. Now, what about if we wanted to, when we click the link, we want the class to be added, and then when we click the link again, we want the class to be removed. Well, jQuery makes that very simple for us. We just change this right here to toggle class. Okay, and now we'll start with a blank slate. So we'll remove that down there. Save the page, refresh over here. Now we're going to click it. Okay, class is added. When we click it again, class is removed. Class is added, class is removed. We could sit here all day and play with this. Okay, so jQuery makes that very, very simple. Toggle class, very handy. Now, as I said, like it's a really simple example we're going with here, but you can see the potential of this if, for example, you had a class in the body that basically, if that class is there or not, changes the whole layout of the page. You might have a dark layout and a light layout. So just by clicking on a link, someone could change the whole look of your page if you wanted to give them that functionality. So it can be pretty powerful. Just use your imagination. You can see how this can be extremely cool. So that's pretty much the end of this tutorial. Next one, we're going to get into selectors and targeting a little more in depth. We did a little bit right here with selectors, but there's a lot more to it than that. So I'll show you a few more cool things along those lines. Once again, my name is Niall Doherty. Source code and video notes are available at jQuerytutorialsforbeginners.com, and hope to see you for the next screencasts. Bye bye.